middle.
Hey everyone, today we are, welcome guys. Today we are discussing layers of abstraction in the AI world and where value is accruing. We heard on the last panel that this is completely the wrong question, so this is an irrelevant discussion. But maybe we'll see if that changes throughout the next 20 minutes. I'd love to kind of welcome Amr, Steven, and Erik to the panel. Would you each kind of go down the line and kind of introduce yourselves? Tell us a bit about where your companies live in the AI stack. Steven, you want to start?
Yeah, I'm Steven Balaban. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Lambda. Lambda lives on the infrastructure layer of the stack with our GPU cloud.
Nice. I'm Erik Bernhardsson. I'm the founder of a company called Modal, based here in New York. We're like slightly higher up in the stack, but still pretty low in the stack. We offer a scalable infrastructure provider framework to basically run AI workloads, as well as other types of workloads, machine learning and data as well. Make it easy to deploy things that scale, et cetera.
Hi, and I'm Amr Awadallah, currently founder and CEO at Vectara. Prior to that, I was founder and CTO at Cloudera, which went public in the New York Stock Exchange around here in 2017, a number of years ago. And at Vectara, we are at the platform layer, so a little bit higher. And what we offer is a trusted GenAI service. And by trusted, we mean solving some of the key compliance and regulation problems that are required to be able to leverage GenAI within the enterprise. These are issues like hallucination, prompt attacks, explainability, et cetera, et cetera.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for being here. We'd love to kind of use this panel to really think through in depth some of the kind of aspects of unit economics and defensibility in startups. There's so much capital going into AI startups today. I'd love to hear, just kind of broadly speaking, do we feel like we're in any sort of valuation bubble, or where are we in the hype cycle from our panelists?
Should we go back this way?
Yeah, up to you guys. Yeah.
I think, yeah, we are in the bubble.
Yeah.
The valuations are kind of insane right now, to be honest. Like if I look at my previous company, Cloudera, my first round of funding was, we raised about $5 million on $8 million pre for a valuation of $13 million. That was back in 2008 when that happens. For my newest company, that's my previous round, we raised $25 million at a valuation more than $100 million. And that was just the presentation and the team. So yeah, it's an order of magnitude difference. Now, I think it's on us as entrepreneurs to take advantage of that when we can, so we can build better companies by raising more cash that enables that. But at the same time, we have to be very careful with how we spend that money. Those of us that saw how hard it was to get money in prior years appreciate that a bit more.
Yep.
Yeah.
I tend to agree. I think there's a lot of exuberance and a lot of capital chasing yield. That being said, I think there's going to be a lot of wealth created also in this whatever bubble. But I do think a lot of entrepreneurs should be focused more on capital efficiency for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think that a company is kind of worth its net present value of its future cash flows, or all the cash it's going to disgorge to its investors.
That's how it should be. It's not always the case, but that's how it should be.
There's a lot of growth assumptions built into
it's how many GPUs you have. That's
well, naturally. But I think that there's always just cycles of investment where, whether you look at the internet, computers, railroad, electrification, automobiles, there's always large cycles of lots of investment happens. The winners get shaken out. And
do you feel there's an analogy to a year, for example, in the .com era that we're in today?
Yeah. I'm curious what everyone thinks about that. Yeah.
I think the fiber optics buildup is somewhat reminiscent.
But
yeah.
so if Mosaic was was 95, 96, or maybe it was 95, somewhere around 95.
Yeah.
And so what year do you think we're in? I'm curious. I mean, I'm kind of more of we're like 1997 type of.
So party continues for a few more years.
So still 3 more years before the bubble bursts?
Yeah.
That's what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay, I think the similarity is very strong. Like, I actually lived that first one. So I had a startup that I started in 1999.
Yeah.
That was just at the boundary of the bubble starting to burst. And I was very fortunate that Yahoo came in and acquired my startup in May of 2000, just before the bubble truly was exploding. Our startup had about 20 other competitors doing the exact same thing. All of them died, all of them. So maybe one company called MySimon, keep going, for those that remember them. So yes, there is similarity, but at the same time, if you look at that burst of the bubble that took place, some of the strongest companies of our generation came out of that. VMware came out of that, Google came out of that, Facebook.
Amazon.
And Amazon as well, you're right. So I agree with the comment series. Yes, there is hype, there is some over expectations, but this is here to stay. This is not like the blockchain kind of hype.
Yeah.
This is real hype.
Well, let's talk about that, and then like who is actually seeing real adoption, true value in the market today, or who alternatively is kind of lighting money on fire. Curious if you guys have a take on where in the stack real adoption and value is occurring.
I'm very bullish generally when there's new technology and more like consumer stuff. Like a bunch of the previous panel talked about Suno. Suno's a customer, so I'm biased, but very bullish on like, I also used to work at Spotify for 7 years. I like music, but I think that's a good example of like, they're actually creating a product that people are paying for, and like, it's a new type of thing. So like, that's the kind of stuff that I like. As opposed to enterprise, where like, my feeling is there's a lot of R&D money that is currently getting deployed and has not yet made it into the production phase. So it's like a little bit more volatile in that sense. We'll sort of see how durable that revenue is.
What is preventing further adoption from the enterprise? Like, why is it R&D today?
I think it just takes time to find like something that works. Like I think a lot about mobile, right? Like when mobile came, like every enterprise company released a mobile app. But like it turned out most of them were like not that great. And then it took a while until like people actually started using their Chase app or like whatever, right? Like it took, or the Facebook app or something like that.
Yeah,
It took a number of years.
But also I would say there's nothing preventing. It's just the enterprises are slow. Like look at the mobile revolution, like with the iPhone coming out in 2007, it was not until 5-6 years later that many of them woke up, oh, actually we need to have a mobile app now for our customers to use that stuff. So I think it's natural. Some of them will be early adopters and will come in sooner and will move faster. Some of them will be pragmatists, will wait until the early adopters succeed first before they adopt, and some of them will be the elite majority that will come way later. So I think we're seeing the natural growth of the market, actually.
Is it though what you're hearing? Is it accuracy? Is it privacy?
Oh, the issues, yeah, I can tell you the issues. The top three, at least for large language models and generative AI, the top three issues in this order. Number one is hallucinations and accuracy. That's very, very concerning. Number two is security, prompt attacks, and how you can do essentially the equivalent of human behavioral engineering attacks against large language models to get them to confess something to you that you should not see. And then number three is explainability. Especially in regulated industries like banks and telecoms and so on, you cannot just give me an answer. How did you come up with this answer?
Yep.
And there is some minor issues like bias and copyright infringement potential, et cetera, et cetera. But the top three by far are accuracy and hallucinations, security, and explainability, at least in my world. You folks can comment if you have other issues you're seeing.
I think a lot of it's like a skill issue in terms of like it takes time to it's just like with the mobile stuff, right?
Yeah.
I love my United app, but like it took a while for that to like get to for them to be able to hire good iOS engineers who have taste and make the decision that they're going to make a native application or whatever. And
yep.
I think it just takes some time for that skill set to diffuse, especially just a longer time within the enterprise. And then, yeah, I think that there's just like regulatory uncertainty that a lot of, they see things like Stability AI lawsuit and they see this, all these different lawsuits.
No, I mean, New York Times has a major lawsuit now against OpenAI. That's going to be a seminal lawsuit, actually, right? Where they're going after them and saying, hey, we cannot read our articles and train your models on them and have them repeat back paragraphs that are verbatim paragraphs from the articles.
And then explainability is really, that's been a problem since, I remember going to NeurIPS in 2014 and NIPS in 2014, and it was like talking about an insurance provider. And they're like, yeah, we just can't use black box models because it's not an option. And frankly, it'll never be an option. Like, if it's not something that you're not going to be able to explain all the parameters.
Yeah.
Great. Well, let's talk about the kind of differences maybe between investing in AR startups versus traditional software companies. Unit economics is a big aspect here in terms of the upfront cost of running training runs, as well as inference costs and embeddings costs, other sort of like fixed costs. Can you guys talk about whether you view that as sort of inevitable to remain true, or are we going to see kind of AI startups, improve their unit economics? In what ways?
I think this is really interesting because there's a lot of discussion, around that. Okay, well, if you're an AI application company, you deserve software margins. It's like, as a company, you don't really deserve anything. Like the market gives you what your margins are, and you don't really deserve anything. And so why should it be the case that an AI application company should have 90% software margins? Like that's not a given. And I think a lot of investors, when we're throwing valuations around, there's this assumption that, this is all just going to eventually sort of asymptotically converge to old school SaaS margins, and it very well may not. And because there's a lot of players in the stack. There's Lambda, there's NVIDIA, there's data center builders, there's middle layer people, right? And so the point is that running an AI application is very compute intensive, and it's not at all like serving a web app, and it's certainly not at all like shipping a piece of software that gets installed onto a computer that has a literal 0% marginal cost. I mean, at the end of the day, that's very totally different
and hard to.
Yeah, I agree with the previous panel actually, where they were saying for the mega models that take on the order of $100 million to train.
Yeah.
That's going to be the game of the big companies. You shouldn't even try to do that. And even for them, and when I say a big company, I mean a big company that has a healthy revenue stream that's not waiting for this to deliver profitability. So that would be companies like Google, Amazon, and Microsoft. For younger companies, if they don't have a benefactor like that supporting them, like as an example of OpenAI, it's going to be impossible to make the economics work. In the same sense that everybody, when we saw WeWork, we could tell WeWork is all about the economics of renting an office and then recouping the cost that you paid for it. So when you build a large language model, a given run of building like GPT-3 or GPT-4 is estimated to be on the order of $100 million. So imagine, and that's just the hardware and compute, that's not the salaries of the people. So imagine spending $100 million, you build the model, and then within 6 months, that model is now obsolete.
Yep.
You don't have time to recoup the $100 million you just invested in it. You have to go build the next one. So you will never be profitable. You can only be part of a big company that can support that. That's my opinion. I could be biased, but that's my opinion.
I think, but even worse is just like, okay, well, then when you release them out to the world, every single net new customer that you get, you still need to support them with additional compute on the OpEx side of things.
Yeah.
And right, like, I think that OpEx cost is actually maybe even more determinative of an application layer's gross margin.
I kind of want to point out, I mean, to some extent, this is not necessarily unique to like AI, right? Like, I feel like there's been multiple waves of like VC exuberance around like whether it's like ride sharing, when it turns out like actually the margins were not quite as good as we thought, and then it was like e-commerce, actually turns out CAC is very high, or maybe WeWork, something that turns out actually it's like kind of at liability duration mismatch, and so
scooters maybe.
Is that
scooters?
Scooters, yeah. So I think there's going to be some hits and misses along the way, like certain things. Like I tend to be somewhat bearish on the sort of foundation model economics for the same reason you said. Actually, it turns out if you want to do the margin calculation, like you should take into account the like very how fast the model quality depreciates because someone else is going to build a better model. So yeah, it is tricky, I think, to make the economics work for everyone. But
VC exuberance. Wait, guys, we're the ones selling the stock. They're not paying enough right now. They're not paying enough right now.
I know. We're a little bit, yeah.
3 founders on stage talking about
how VCs are too exuberant. Yeah.
But I want to disagree with one quick point you made. The inference cost, so there's training cost and inference cost, creating the model and serving the model. The inference cost of serving a model is tracking very well in terms of direction.
Well, too.
Yes, the cost is going down very fast. The speeds are going up very fast. That I see that one converging to 90% gross margins very, very soon, actually. So like Anthropic, I think they're saying they're serving margins at about 60%. I see them getting to 90% at some point on that, on the serving side. But on the model building side, that's really much harder.
Well, especially on the application side, if you're just using an LM provider, I think the margins could be fantastic for that.
Yes, yes.
Like, I don't know what the margins are for Harvey, but I imagine like very good.
How should startups, Stephen, maybe be reducing their GPU bills? Is there something that there's a trick that we don't know yet, or is that something?
I mean, you chose the wrong person to ask.
I'll tell you what, we're
No. But in all seriousness, I think that like you should just look at when you are getting GPU compute and getting compute. Don't get more than you need.
Yeah.
Get the amount of compute that you need. You know, probably choose something that's going to be pretty flexible for you.
Yeah.
Right? I think that there's a lot of waste across the market with regards to people sign a locked-in thing, and there ends up being a lot of stranded compute. It's impossible to like resell the stranded compute inside of a locked-up contract because you don't want some random third party inside of your data center where you have your most prized possession, which is your data and your code and everything. And so I'd say just get the right amount of compute for what you're trying to do, and yeah, I mean,
Makes sense.
It's like pretty basic.
So so we are users of lots of compute as part of our platform, and the way that we reduce that bill is first not always sticking to NVIDIA. Like you have to be open-minded to try the other architectures like AMD, like Grok, like all of the Gaudi, all of the great other technologies out there, and play that against NVIDIA.
Got it.
That's how you really get the much better margins on the compute side.
Well, let's talk a bit, sort of last segment here around defensibility generally and competition, because I think what we're seeing is kind of these waves of startups one-upping each other, with their announcements. What are you seeing in terms of like very commodified spaces right now in the stack of AI, and kind of like where would you avoid deploying capital for that reason, or is that okay?
Would we avoid pulling in capital?
Well, I mean, where this kind of like just gets to like, where do you create differentiation for customers?
Yes, so these are different. Like we will always take capital, and I'm a very big believer. If capital comes your way, you take it. That's always de-risks your business and enables you to succeed in a better way.
I'm sort of saying playing the VC. Like you guys know as founders where is there too much competition?
Yeah, so
is it the model layer? Is it the GPUs? Is it foundation?
Yeah, it's hard. It's not easy, right? When a new company is building out, like again, the previous panel said the same thing. Like we're looking for them to be doing something that we don't think is going to be obsolete by the big players very quickly, and that's not always going to work. That type of decision making, because if that was true, then nobody would have ever invested in Uber, because the big players are already doing lemons around. Nobody would have invested in Airbnb because there's lots of people doing hotels. Nobody would have invested in, I'm trying to give another example closer to our house, Square.
Yeah.
Right? Because Visa is dominating the market, or PayPal is dominating the market, et cetera, et cetera. So that's one thing. But as far as running a company myself, strategically, we know that you always have to have one or two moats that are very, very special about you. And you have to stick to those, right? And make sure those are very aligned with the product market fit that you're after. And if you do that very, very well and truly differentiate, not just how you build the product, it's how you market it, how you sell it, how you partner around these moats that you have, then that's how you're going to remain defensible, number one. Number two, these moats in this new day and age where we have now AI helping us code way quicker than ever before, these moats are only going to last you for a year. And you're going to have to find new moats. You're not going to have strategic moats that are going to be true for many, many years. And that's kind of the dynamism that we have to learn to deal with.
I think that's roughly right. And I also don't think there's a particularly strategic mode, but like to me, like the biggest thing you can do, the best thing is like hire smart people and build a great product. And like if people love it, they're going to keep using it.
Hire smart people, make a product that delights your customers. Pretty simple.
So it's not a different playbook for AI startups.
I don't think so. And like it goes to like, building something that like, you own the workflow, you build a, something like we talked about video editing or like something like that. I like those types of products. Like you're actually building something unique, something with unique technology, unique software. I focus a lot on developers as my customer. I focus a lot on developer experience.
Got it.
I actually think that the model space is actually like super competitive, and it's like, if you actually think about it, it's sort of like the ultimate commoditized thing. It's text in, text out. It's like the most modular software you could
I agree.
really imagine,
Zero
right?
switching cost.
And then everyone just copies OpenAI's APIs. So it's like literally change a URL and then you
So 2
you
years
switch
ago-
over. And I think that's an interesting dynamic.
2 years ago, the foundational models were a strong moat. They absolutely were a strong moat. But as soon as Llama came out, and then we had Databricks release DBRX, we had Snowflake release Arctic, NVIDIA release what's called Nemo or something. Nemo.
Well, Mixtral Falcon, yeah.
the big
like
new
the
model
list
they
is
released.
long, right?
Yeah, now it became truly, like for any young startup, they just take one of these nice open source ones, and some of them are Apache licensed, which is a very friendly license, and then you fine tune from there. So that disappeared as a moat in my opinion.
Makes sense. Well, thanks so much. That's all the time, and really appreciate all the great discussion. Thanks so much.
Of course, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.